As somebody who frequently communicates, whether it's through public speaking or casual conversation, I became aware of a persistent issue: filler words. Those seamlessly innocent words like so, and you know, that are just sprinkled throughout conversation like a reflex. And although they may seem harmless, they dilute the power of the message that we're trying to get across. So let's just jump right into how I eliminated them from my verbal repertoire. The first is embracing the silence. Growing up, we're conditioned to fear silence, especially during conversation. We view it as a sign of doubt or uncertainty. In my early days of public speaking, I'd often insert an or an during those silent moments to seem more engaged. But in reviewing records of those talks, those filler words stood out like blemishes in an otherwise smooth delivery. To address this, I had to rewrite my perception of silence. Rather than seeing it as a void, I started to view it as a moment of reflection. Silence, when used properly, can be incredibly powerful. It allows your listeners a moment to digest what has been said, and it showcases your confidence. Once I consciously started to respect these pauses, my use of filler words decreased significantly. And as a surprise bonus, my words carried more weight. I remember attending a seminar years ago by a renowned motivational speaker, and in the middle of his speech, he just completely went silent. I thought he was having an episode or something. In that stillness in the room, I will never forget it. You could hear a pin drop from a mile away. But that pause, that silence, was more powerful than any word he could have uttered. It gave weight to the previous statement, and it prepared the audience for what was to come next. And I left not only inspired by the power of his message, but just intrigued by the use of that silence. Taking inspiration by that seminar, I embarked on a personal challenge. I committed to harnessing the power of silence in every conversation, presentation, and even casual chats. The rule was simple. Every time I felt inclined to use a filler word, I would stop, I would take a deep breath, and then I would continue. And to my surprise, these moments of pause became tools. They emphasized points, gave listeners a chance to think, and even gave me an opportunity to catch my breath and to gather myself and my thoughts. Feedback from my peers was overwhelming and positive. They mentioned that my conversations were much more thoughtful and that my message was more clear. Incorporating silence into my speech didn't mean turning every conversation into a dynamic monologue. It's about understanding that sometimes saying nothing says a lot more than saying something. Now we have practicing slow speech. When I first began giving presentations on stage and in class, I had so much adrenaline rushing through my body. And this excitement made me speak at just such a frantic pace because my heart was pounding and my delivery was not very effective. I remember after one botched presentation in class, my teacher pulled me aside and he shared with me the recording of it. He highlighted the sections where my speed hindered comprehension and my words just weren't very clear. And it was a revelation that my most important messages were lost in a flurry of just trying to speak and get it out as quickly as I could. So that's when I knew I had to get very intentional with slowing down with what I'm trying to say. You see, the rhythm of our speech is akin to music. Imagine a song playing too fast. It quickly loses its charm. And when speech is delivered too rapidly, it could have the same effect.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
You can miss the nuances and the depth of the message altogether, whereas slow speech allows time for critical points to get across so that the listener has time to digest it and take in all that information.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
One thing that helped me a ton was reading familiar text out loud, where I was slow and pacing out every single word, making sure I was giving attention to each individual syllable and that I was very clear in my message. Also, when I would review recordings, I would play it back at half speed, and if that sounded normal, there was something wrong. Research indicates that optimal speed for clear comprehension in public speaking is between 140 and 160 words per minute. World-renowned speakers like Martin Luther King Jr. have deployed this very tactic to get their message deeply across.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
And some of the most prolific TED Talk speakers, including Steve Jobs, would speak within this 140 and 160 word per minute range. Pausing and speaking slowly can add gravity to your words, emphasize points, and allow for your audience to really take in the message that you are trying to get across. It's about control and clarity and making every single word count. Next is visual feedback. We live in a digital age where technology can be a great aid in personal growth. And in looking at all these tools, I decided to take advantage of transcription software. According to Edgar Dale's Cone of Experience, people generally remember 10% of what they read, 20% of what they hear, but a staggering 50% of what they both see and hear. And when we see our speech patterns visibly, we can get a better understanding of what actually needs improvement. By transcribing my speeches and conversations, I could visually witness the frequency of my filler words. Every week, I would review these transcripts, highlighting every filler word. Every like or you know stands out, and it's really profound. With every new conversation, my highlighted words started to decrease, which showcased my improvement. And I would start to view this as more of a game, where as I continued to do this, I would level up and I would start to see less and less of those highlighted lines. Next is the rubber band trick. Back in the prehistoric age, when I was taking upper division public speaking classes and I was super shy, one of my teachers introduced to me the rubber band trick. He handed me a rubber band and said, "Put this on your wrist. Every time you catch yourself using a filler word, snap it." And I was skeptical. I thought there's no way, this is abuse, but I had nothing to lose at that point. As it turns out, it's not abuse, it's actually psychology. Classical conditioning, a concept pioneered by Ivan Pavlov, is the process by which reflective response is associated with a new stimulus. You see, the rubber band snap act as a slight negative reinforcement, so my brain was nudged to associate filler words with mild discomfort. And over time, your subconscious mind begins to deter filler words in order to avoid the snap. Now, as you would imagine, the first day of snap sounded like an EDM song. From casual conversations to meetings, I was snapping the heck out of that thing. My conversations got smoother, my presentations were more polished, and my confidence was going up. And although it looked like I was going through domestic abuse, but I wasn't. I was improving myself. I know this one's odd, but I think it's a potent reminder of the power of awareness and classical conditioning in refining your speech. Next is expanding your vocabulary. Earlier on in my career, when I was going to seminars and workshops trying to build up my skills, I often found myself in rooms with just super high-level communicators. And some of them spoke with just such eloquence and finesse that it just left this lasting impression on my mind. And not just because they were using this super complex jargon, but they just were using the right word for the conversation. It was like watching a painter carefully select the colors to create their masterpiece. And this was a serious wake-up call that my vocabulary needed some work. You see, language at the core is about expressing ideas. The more words you have at your disposal, the more nuances you can capture. Think of it as upgrading from an 8-color crayon box to a 64-color one. The difference is obvious. A richer vocabulary not only allows for precision, but it demands respect and attention. It's a difference between a basic statement and a captivating narrative. I started creating a vocabulary journal, jotting down unfamiliar words, their meanings, and sentences. Revisiting and revising from this journal became a weekly ritual. Over time, words that once seemed foreign started to appear casually in conversations, and I was surprising myself. An enriched vocabulary doesn't just benefit speech, it improves comprehension while reading and adds flair to writing. I found that emails, reports, and articles I've penned have been more persuasive and engaging because of this deliberate focus on vocabulary. It's about painting vivid pictures with words and stirring emotions and making lasting impressions. Eliminating filler words from your speech won't happen overnight. It's a journey, just like everything else, that requires patience and persistence. But the result? Crystal clear, impactful speech that really draws in your audience. I've walked these paths, and these hacks have revolutionized my communication style. Give them a shot, and you will find your unique voice that resonates and engages. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys like and subscribe to my channel, and this provides a ton of value for you. And I will see you in the next video. Later.